Hi, I'm Jess. If we have met, I'm so glad you're here again. But if this is the first time we're meeting, I want to pop in and tell a little bit about my background, my story, why I'm here, and just why I'm so dang passionate about taking care of our health. I think oftentimes people who are in the health industry, there's like this persona about us that we've gotten it right for so long, and that's actually not my story at all. I believe in what I believe in because I've gotten it wrong so many times, but I've learned how to push through, and I've had really amazing people teach me how to take better care of my body, and then my education has really supported that. And so I wanted to come in here and lead with a bit of vulnerability and tell you a bit about my background, why I'm here, what we're doing, and why the roots of why I got here. So when it comes to health and nutrition, there are three things that I believe at my core. And someone asked me this the other day. They said, Jess, what's something you hope everyone takes away from your interactions? It would be these three things. Number one, your body wants to be healthy. I believe with every bone in my body that your body was intricately and beautifully designed. I believe God intentionally designed our bodies to work well. And when we partner nutrition with that, we get to unlock just how powerful that health can be. Number two, most nutrition information is true. Not all is helpful. We live in a world where there's so much nutrition information. We are inundated with it on social media, headlines, friends. I mean, I went out to dinner the other night and everyone around me was telling me what diet they were on and why it worked for them. And I was thinking, gosh, if I didn't do what I do for a living, I would be totally overwhelmed by this. Most nutrition information is true. Everybody has a story with what works for them, but not all nutrition information is true for you. And so a big part of what I love to teach is how to filter nutrition science through your body's language, through your body's biofeedback, and through your own value system. And then the third thing that I believe at my core, and I hope everyone takes away, is that food is deeply personal, and I honor that. I think, again, we live in a world where everything is systemized and there's apps, there's this food logging tool, there's this book that will change your life. And I believe at my core that when it comes to our story with food and our body, it is deeply personal because that's been our experience. And we get frustrated and we start to feel like we're doing it wrong when we try to put our story into somebody else's story. So I want to give you a little background about my story and how I got to where I am at and why I believe these three things so passionately. So I started out interested in nutrition at a very young age. I was raised in the 90s, and I think most of us in the 90s remember, oh gosh, do you guys remember the SnackWells era? Like everything was fat free. I was on a Special K diet for most of my high school career where I had one bowl of cereal for breakfast and one bowl of cereal for lunch. And it was promised that if I did that for 2 weeks, I would lose like 14 pounds or something like that. And I never did because I could never stick to it, nor did I need to lose 14 pounds. But somewhere along the way in the 90s, we were just told this is how we're supposed to be skinny, or no matter what we weighed, right? And so I think that sparked my interest in nutrition, not because I had a genuine interest in it, but because I had a compulsion towards it. Like, this is something I am supposed to pay attention to and something that matters. Unfortunately, that was not guided well. So I never had a nutrition class. In health class, we didn't even talk about it in my health class. I think nowadays they do a bit better of a job. But when I was in school, we didn't talk about it. And so I turned to Cosmopolitan magazine, which would be like the equivalent of today's TikTok for teens, only that's on an algorithm and on steroids. So, gosh, I have such a heart for this generation and what they're working through and what they're faced with. But, anyways, I was turning to Cosmopolitan magazine, teen magazine, where we were told eat 1,500 calories, no carbs, low fat. And I just glommed onto that. I started to follow it religiously. And then as I went to college, I left the nest. I didn't know anybody. I was completely on my own, which was a great adventure. But unfortunately, for someone like me that did not have a solid identity in who I was and what kind of way I wanted to make in the world, I just leaned into what I looked like. I think, again, in the 90s, we were told that's what's important. And so I just leaned into that and said, well, I don't know what major I want. So I'm just going to obsess about what I look like and how skinny I am because that feels fixable. That feels like something I can do. So I actually ended up developing an eating disorder. I developed bulimia, and it was a blip in my life. It was a season of my life that was really hard. And it was one that felt very isolating and lonely because I didn't even know I had an eating disorder. All I knew was that I hated my body. I hated being in my very own skin. Now, I ended up walking out of that season. I actually never got treatment for an eating disorder. I ended up having a really spiritual experience while I was studying abroad. I had a dream, and God told me to start reading the Bible again. And so I did. And that was absolutely life-changing for my perception of my relationship with food. I didn't learn how to have a healthier relationship with food until later on in my story. But in that moment, I knew my identity wasn't in how I looked. And so I was able to get that piece on solid ground. So I stopped mistreating my body. I stopped beating it up. And that was a pretty quick turnaround. It was actually pretty cool. I'm very dramatic. And so I was studying abroad. I told you I had this dream, and we were going bungee jumping the next day. And it was something I was terrified of. I am so scared of heights, but I have serious FOMO. So I would sooner die than miss out on something fun. So everybody in my group was going bungee jumping. It's the second highest bungee jump in the world, 137 meters, suspended from a pod down into a canyon. You're standing on a glass floor, so you can literally see where you might die right below you. And this was right after I had that dream. And so, again, I would rather die than have FOMO and miss out on something like this. So I decided to do it. I didn't sleep a wink the night before. I was so scared. I remember getting there, and honestly, it was my worst dream come true, or my nightmare come true at that point, because we had to weigh and write our weight on our hand and then line up in order of weight. And I was not at the back of the line, which is where I wanted to be. Because remember, in the 90s, we were told we needed to be the smallest. And so I had to line up. And I'm literally lining up based on body weight, comparing myself to everybody else in the line and having to face that. And I remember that's when I just decided to take a breath. And I was open to what else God would have for me. And so I ended up jumping off. And that was a whole thing. It was terrifying. But as soon as I let go, actually, let me back up. I get to the edge, and it's when you're bungee jumping, so it's time to jump. It's my time to jump. I get up to the platform, and the rules are they can't push you because of liability issues. So I stand there, and the guy counts down. He goes, 3, 2, 1, go. I don't move. My physical body is like, this is not normal. We are not jumping. So he goes, I'm going to count again. 3, 2, 1. I don't budge. So the guy was great. I mean, he was very patient with me. He said, Jess, I want you to look over the horizon. See those trees? Do you see that mountaintop? Isn't it beautiful? Turn your brain off. 3, 2, 1. And I jumped. And when I jumped, I felt this release in me, this release of control of things I had been holding on to physically in the platform sense. Like I literally jumped off the platform, but also in this sense of what I'd been controlling up until this point in my life. Now, bungee jumping is one of the most freeing, amazing feelings. I hope I'm brave enough to do it again one day. But as you fall and the cord starts to build tension, your body comes to this very smooth sail, and then it very gently pulls you back up. It's not like the whiplash that I had expected. And I think what was so telling about that is it helped me understand this release of control on a physical level that over time manifested into a release of control on an emotional and spiritual level. And I found that when I just let go of control, let go of expectations, there was a smooth sailing experience that I was going to feel. And I let that happen with my eating disorder. So by the grace of God, that experience completely changed my relationship with food. So from there on, for the next 10 years, I sat in this very intuitive place with food. And that was much credit to intuitive eating, where I learned to listen to my hunger cues, my fullness cues, really ate what I wanted to eat and did not have any foods off limits. It was a beautiful season in my life. However, then I had a baby. When I had my first son, my husband was on call 24/7. He was a detective at the time. He was on the SWAT team. I was a new mom getting no sleep and trying to eat intuitively. And I'll tell you what, it did not work. I felt awful. I had no energy. I had no strength for any kind of workout. I wasn't sleeping well. And I honestly was not eating well at all. I was very much sitting in the what do I want to eat and what feels good. I would spend the next 7 years starting to learn how to listen to my body. But it took 7 years because for that next 7 years, it's like that control resurfaced and repackaged itself, but my body continued to try to tell me otherwise. And I'm just a stubborn human. So it took me a really long time to hear what my body was saying. So over those 7 years, I would try out different exercises, different ways to take care of my body, different nutrition and diets. And I'd call it research because I'm a dietitian. So I was researching food for my clients. But honestly, what was happening during that time is my body was screaming at me. It was showing up in different ways. It was showing up in I didn't have a lot of strength. So I physically felt very weak. I struggled with insomnia for years. So this was even after my kids started to sleep through the night. I couldn't sleep through the night. And it wasn't until I went to a doctor and the doctor asked me all the questions that they ask women in their mid 30s. And she said, you have perimenopause and you need to be put on hormones. And I just felt a resistance to that. And it's not that I'm against hormones, but what I am against is skipping the step of listening to my body. And when she asked me those questions and I heard myself saying, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm not sleeping through the night, I'm losing hair, my gut health is off, I don't feel like I'm getting stronger at the gym. When I heard myself saying all these things at once, and then she proposed going on hormones, it's like something clicked in my head that I was missing the connection to my body. I was missing what my body was trying to tell me. So I told her, I said, hey, I think there's a place for that, but I know I'm not doing my part yet. Can you give me 6 months? Let me see what I can do. And then I'll come back. And if I'm still suffering from these symptoms, I'll go on hormones. And she said, great. So we scheduled an appointment for 6 months. And I took that 6 months to really learn and dive in and listen to my body. And, it took lots of conversations, honestly, with other dietitians, other colleagues, because I do this for a living, but sometimes it's hard to see in our own rhythms, right? Like we just think we start to normalize everything we do that we don't even know what is abnormal. So I was able to, through conversation, people gently revealed to me where I might be missing some of the communication my body was giving me. And it wasn't what I expected. In intuitive eating, they talk about hunger and satiety or hunger and fullness. And I felt like I got really good at that. Like I could eat when I'm hungry. I could stop when I was full. I knew when I was eating past fullness and just eating because I wanted to eat. Like I had a general awareness about that. But what I was missing was the nervous system overdrive that was impacting my gut health and my hormones and my sleep and my overall energy. And so there was a big breaking point when I ended up switching jobs. And I started to realize there was a tension in my shoulders that I had been carrying for years. And, I could see it in my husband when he was on the SWAT team. I could always see when his shoulders were tense and tight, but it's like I couldn't see it in myself until I started to feel something different. And I started to notice that I had an energy when I walked around that was just frantic. It was always trying to get things done and multitask and 7 things at once. And some of that is my personality. Some of that is the season of life I was in with the kids and, mama you can do everything, right? They always come to mama. I joke, I'm like, what if I told you your dad could also open fruit snacks, right? They come to us for everything. So there was some overstimulation, but it was like my body learned how to be on overdrive. And what it had, because it had gotten so proficient at being on overdrive, it didn't know how to rest. And now, what I know now is that that was a nervous system overdrive and an imbalance. And I needed to learn how to teach my body. So, what I know now is that my nervous system was fried. I had been in the sympathetic nervous system overdrive for so long that my body felt it was unsafe to even rest. And I think this is so telling because I know I'm not alone here. This was a pattern I had from years ago, just being a person who is a people pleaser, someone who is an overachiever. I like to get things done. I have an athlete personality. So I like to set goals and accomplish them. And that's a beautiful quality about me. And at the same time, when it was combined with a season of life that had a higher demand, it put me in this position where my body didn't know how to rest, both at night and in general. And unfortunately, what happens when we do that is that our gut health gets off. See, there's two types of nervous systems. There's the sympathetic nervous system, which is your go mode. I call it your high heel mode. And then there's your parasympathetic nervous system. This is your rest and digest nervous system. This is actually when your gut takes over and starts to absorb nutrition, heal your body, give your body the tools that it needs. We need both to function and function well. And so I had to learn how to switch from go mode to rest mode and how to value rest as much as I value go mode. And some of this is spiritual for me because, in my faith, God made the world in 6 days and on the seventh he rested. And that's a model that the Christian faith takes and invites us to practice. There is a period for work and then there is a period for rest. And I had to look at that model and go, okay, am I actually resting? Not just from work, but like, am I resting from emotional labor? Am I resting from my responsibilities, from my expectations? Am I learning to just rest? And that was a huge pivot for me. And that involved the letting go. And that goes back to what I experienced that day in New Zealand when I bungee jumped. There was a letting go and a trusting that what God has for me will always be there. And that when I rest, he works. And so it was a spiritual shift that I had. There was some deep work that was done there. I had to unpack stories I have around expectations and goals and finances and career and body and food. I had to do a lot of work in unpacking that. But when I let that go, it allowed my body to do what it does best. So this brings me back to why I believe those three things I shared at the beginning. I believe your body wants to be healthy. It was designed to be healthy. And part of that is honoring this sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system on off mode. What's really cool is we now have tools that measure this. So if you have a smartwatch or an Oura ring, it's measuring your heart rate variability. That is actually measuring your nervous system regulation. And the higher that number is, the better, the more you're able to switch between on mode and off mode. The second part is the nutrition information. Most of it is true. Not all of it is helpful. What I find interesting about my journey that I see on repeat and my clients' journeys is that we have these seasons. And I had this season of intuitive eating that was really healing, really powerful for me to go through. But if I would have stayed there, I wouldn't be at where I'm at today. And it's interesting to me now because some of my health practices that I have now, I think, had I done them in my early 20s, it would have been disordered. But now it's from an empowered place because I know who I am and I know what my identity is. But I had to honor the different seasons. And in doing so, you can't be absorbing all the nutrition information from everyone around you. And this is really hard as women, especially because every time we sit down, somebody's talking about it. I think we have to honor everybody's journey and understand that it's deeply personal. And that's my third piece. This is deeply personal. I shared a piece of my story with you today, only in hopes that you might see some of your own story or reflect upon some of your experiences. there is so much that happens in our life, and a lot of it is around food. A lot of it is around our body. And what's interesting to me is for some reason, we don't give that a lot of space. And this is something we do every day. Like we have to eat every single day. And our relationship with food then obviously matters. The story behind what we tell ourselves about how we're supposed to eat, the role of food in our life, like that's a really important story to understand because it's highly influential, both in the day to day and our longevity. And yet, I don't think we give it a lot of space to talk about. I'll give you a few examples. I was working with a client who actually, this was one of my very first clients who was for weight loss. And she came to me and we were working on weight loss. And I was, 21 at the time, very excited. I'm always excited, but I was especially excited. So we're working on weight loss. She starts to lose weight. Things are going really well. She comes back. She weighs in. I'm a cheerleader. Yes, this is amazing. She gets really somber and says, Jess, a man noticed me. And I just jump right in, ignorant as all. Say, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, you're so womanly. That's great. Da, 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 da. She just looks at me and I said, well, isn't that great? I mean, it's okay to be a woman and be noticed. And she goes, maybe for you. Woo. Thank God. I got a little divine download at that moment. I knew exactly what she was conveying. Her body story was one that involved serious trauma, and being noticed was not safe. So again, her nervous system was on overdrive for a different reason than mine. Her nervous system was on overdrive around losing weight and being noticed because in her experiences, that was not safe. And I think, again, so many of us have these stories where we learn to protect our bodies in ways that serve us for a time, but over time, it becomes a trauma response. And it's become convoluted as well because we have so much nutrition information in the world. And then we also have Ozempic and GLP-1s that have entered the conversation now. So we literally have this like crazy whiplash around food. We have these personal experiences with food. We have these traumas with our body, be it something that is very serious and needs to be addressed in a therapy setting, or it might be like the paper cut, the death by 1,000 paper cuts, which is like little comments that have been said here and there that we've absorbed throughout the years. And now we have everyone on a GLP-1 who's can again change their body really quickly without looking at some of these stories. So I think it leaves us really, really confused. And I'll tell you, nothing lights my fire more than wanting to help women and men uncover what that story is so they can release the control and feel the peace that our body naturally can give us when we learn to lean into both the go mode and the rest mode. I believe food is a partner. Food was given to our bodies. And I'll tell you, that's my favorite part about going through undergrad and grad school in nutrition is learning these really incredible ways that food partners with our body to be healthy. But we can't even get to that because it's all eclipsed by our story, our experiences, and all the narratives that are around us. So I am really, really passionate about helping people clear that story out. I don't want to say clear it out because it's not getting rid of it. It's understanding it. And, even today, like I gave you kind of the timeline of my journey. That's not to go into the depth of the actual story of why I had a story about my body, why I didn't trust my body, why I didn't feel my body was worthy. That's a story for another day. But ultimately, taking care of our body is one that becomes very, very personal. And I want to honor that. So as you go through your own food journey, I just want to invite you into the empowered eating model because it's one that deeply values what you value and that story and experience that you've been through. It's going to pull in nutrition science. And that's part of my role as a dietitian is helping you weed through all the nutrition information, but actually filter it through your biofeedback and what your body says about food. All three of those quadrants are really important in your empowered eating journey. And I'm so here for it because I believe your body wants to be healthy and aging is a gift. And I want to make sure that every single one of us that have the opportunity can take full advantage of that, just the power food can give us. Because what's cool about getting older, you know more about who you are. You have all this energy, or you have all this insight, and you just don't care anymore what other people think. And I want to make sure you have energy to be paired with that, so you can do all the things you want to do. And age is not something that holds you back. I am so excited you are here. Thanks for hearing a piece of my story, and I want to hear more about you. And I would love to hear more about yours. I hope you have an amazing. Consider this your invitation to start your own empowered eating journey.